Hello and welcome to Atlas Teaching. My name is Megan and I have been an ESL teacher in China for the past 10 years. Today I want to give you a little bit of advice about how to become an ESL teacher if that's something that you're interested in doing. You know, the last few years we've seen a lot of changes in the career industry. A lot of people are looking for untraditional jobs or different jobs, and as travel is almost back to normal now, people are also interested in living in different countries and traveling the world. Being an ESL teacher is a really great choice then, if that's something you are interested in. So if I were to leave China today and become an ESL teacher in a different place, here's what I would do. The first thing I would do is I would consider the location. I would consider what country or countries I'm interested in. Now, maybe you have your heart set on one specific country. That's great. You already know where you want to go. But if you have a few different countries you're interested in, that's okay too. Just start narrowing down your list of possibilities, because the location you choose will change everything about the process of becoming an ESL teacher. The process of becoming an ESL teacher in China is quite different from in France or England or any of these other places. So first, choose one location or just start to narrow down your choices to 2 or 3 countries that you're interested in. Then, once you've chosen your country, it's time to start finding out what qualifications are necessary in that specific country. Now, generally, most countries will ask for 3 things. Number 1, a bachelor's degree. Number 2, a TEFL certificate. And number 3, some type of teaching experience. Now, these are 3 things that countries are interested in, but that doesn't mean that they're necessities. Many of these are optional. But that's the general thing that everyone is going to be looking for. You'll want to get a little bit more specific though, because different qualifications can vary from country to country. For example, if you want to be an ESL teacher in Asia, choosing a country like South Korea or Japan is going to be slightly more difficult because they have higher standards for their teachers compared to countries like China or Cambodia. So it might be a good idea to look online and get a general idea of what those qualifications might be like in an area or in a specific country. One way to do this, if you're looking for ways to find easier Google searches, is to search about getting a work visa in that country. Now, depending on the country you go to, you might need different visas, but this could give you some insight. For example, in China, if you want a work visa as an ESL teacher, you must have a passport from a country whose national language is English. So even if your English were perfect, if you had a German passport, it would be really difficult for you to get a work visa as an ESL teacher in China. So it might be a good idea to just search for those idiosyncrasies that different countries might have. So now you have an idea of which country you would want to go to. The next thing I would do immediately is get started on my TEFL certificate. Now, this might sound a little bit overwhelming, but it's super easy to get a TEFL certificate. You can do a simple search online and you'll find a lot of in-person or online courses that you can complete and that will award you a TEFL certificate. There are different levels for TEFL certificates. You know, some are 60 hours, some are 120 hours, but any TEFL certificate is generally okay for an entry level. But again, that's something that you can research about your country and see what level might be best. If you're interested in more about the TEFL certificate, just leave a question in the comments down below, or you can check out my website, which is atlasteaching.com. There are a few articles there that give you more details about what a TEFL certificate is and how to get one and what companies I recommend and so on. So you've gotten an idea of your country, you've gotten started on your TEFL certificate. Then comes the hardest part, which is actually finding a job. So there are two basic ways to find a job as an ESL teacher overseas. One way is to just do individual applications. So just go online and Google English teaching jobs in Italy, in France, in Austria. Or you can search for specific websites that are similar to LinkedIn or Glassdoor that might be posting different openings. Here's a tip. If you want to use those type of websites, it often helps if you know the specific city that you would like to work in. So for example, if you could search jobs in Paris versus jobs in France. Another thing you could do is you could look at different training centers around the world. For example, EF, English First, is one of the top training centers around the world, and they are in over 120 different countries. And that could be a really good company to help get your foot in the door at one of these companies. So just start sending out your resume, start emailing, start uploading your resume directly to these different platforms or different schools. Now, another way you could apply for jobs is to use an agency. And using an agency often makes this process a lot easier because once you contact the agency, they will help you find different schools, different positions, and help you set up the interview. Now, to be honest, I don't usually recommend using an agency just because most of them are commission-based. So the way that the agency makes their money is that they earn some commission for every new ESL teacher that they sign to different schools. And if you have a great agency, then that's not a problem. They can be a great tool to make an introduction. But if you don't get a good agency, then an agent might put his paycheck and his commission over your experience. That means that he might put you in a school that doesn't have the best working environment or maybe doesn't do everything legally. So in my opinion, I think it's always better to go with individual applications rather than an agency. But an agency can be really helpful and a little bit less overwhelming than applying to all of these places directly. So you've researched your country, you have your TEFL, you've started sending out your resumes. What can you do then? The next thing is you'll probably need a visa with whatever country you go to. That might be a tourist visa or business visa or working visa, but hopefully your school or your agency will help you a little bit with the visa. It might be a good idea to start researching a little bit of information about what documents you might need for the visa. You might need a copy of your birth certificate, or you might need transcripts from your school. If you have a general idea of those basic documents you might need, you can start gathering them and start requesting them. And once you've got all the legal paperwork things out of the way, it's time to dive into your country. Now's the time that you can start learning the language. Maybe you can learn a little bit about the culture. Something I really liked doing was going onto Instagram and finding other people who were living in the city that I was going to. If you feel very extroverted, you can message them and even ask them to meet them when you go. But even if you don't interact with them, you can still see a little bit of what their lifestyle might be like. Or maybe they'll post about something they miss about their home country, something they can't purchase, so you know to pack that with you. So once you've got all of the legal and paperwork things almost sorted out, then go ahead and start diving into the country. And if you can, start to learn a little bit more about teaching as well. Maybe you can volunteer at an area nearby you. Maybe you can work with a school or a university to at least observe some of their teaching. When you become a teacher, it's quite difficult to navigate all of the things that go into a new career. But one of the hardest things is the idea of classroom management. Just knowing how to stand in front of the class and not feel nervous and feel in control. And if you're able to do a little bit of volunteering, either at a school, in a classroom, or even one-on-one tutoring, that might help you feel less nervous when you actually get off the plane in a new country. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of direction if you are interested in becoming an ESL teacher overseas. If you have any questions, you can always leave them in the comments below. Subscribe to this channel for different videos and different tips about teaching. And you can also check out the website, atlasteachingesl.com, for tons of tips about classroom management or ideas for games or different lesson plans that you could use in your own classroom. Okay, that's all for today. I'll see you next time.